Well, welcome to the Legacy Project. We are so honored to have Jen Dyer with us today. She's the Chief Operating Officer for the Phase Alliance, which really is a merger of three different organizations. We started with the Elizabeth Smart Foundation, Maloof Foundation, and Fight the New Drug, an organization that deals with youth sexual exploitation and pornography. So human trafficking and sexual exploitation is part of the DNA of Jen's professional background and career. And I've had the privilege of working with her for the past year or so. So I'm really honored to have her on our Legacy Project podcast. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor to be joining you today. And it's been a privilege and a learning opportunity for me to prep for this. So thank you.
Good. Glad you're here. So, Jen, this is about the Legacy Project, and the Legacy Project is about uh, interviewing individuals from all walks of life about the things that have influenced or shaped them,
Mhm.
beyond the inheritance that we might gain from parents or grandparents of cars, houses, boats, you name it. We're looking at sort of the values, the things that have shaped us and motivated us and directed our lives. And so, my first question is kind of a big question, 50,000 feet. Uh, what is the legacy you've inherited, and who are the people that have shaped that legacy?
Okay, so the legacy I've inherited, it's a rich one. And I would hope that most people would be able to say that. I
Mm.
think, I say often that you'll find what you're looking for. And so if you're looking for a rich legacy, you're going to find it. So, as I've thought about this, I've really tried to I could go a million different directions. And I've written down a lot of names and a lot of individuals that I know and a lot that I don't know who have influenced me and helped create what I'm striving to become in my legacy. But I think first and foremost, I would have to say two women came to mind and rose to the top out of my entire list. And the first is my sweet mother in law, Peggy, and then a dear friend, Nancy. And you'll have to forgive me if I get a bit emotional because they both passed in the last just couple of months. So when we're talking legacy, they have left their legacy. And when I think about them in very different ways, Nancy Nebeker was the dean of the middle school at Waterford, which is an elite private school here in Utah, just actually down the hill from me. But I've known Nancy for 23, 24 years. She held my baby, my 23-year-old son, when he was brand new, and has been a dear, dear friend. She grew up in New York, and really has a powerful background herself. But I think what she left me with the most was the importance of education. She's highly educated, has lived in Thailand for many, many years, traveled the world, incredibly intelligent woman. And but I think more important than that, and that is incredibly important and valuable, is her ability to see others and love them right where they are, and listen and really care about you. Feel like you're the only one in the world that, but everyone feels that way that knows her and loves her. So she's one that definitely rose to the top for those reasons. My sweet mother-in-law, she was not highly educated. She stayed at home with her 7 children, her really almost her entire marriage, and raised her children. And then, all of her 7 children are married, and they have 70 something grandchildren, great grandchildren. And that's a legacy. When you think about what she left behind here in just her posterity, that's an amazing legacy. Um, but I think for her, what she taught me was trust and hope and faith. And she's a woman that always had my back, and just really loved fiercely and stood up for what she believed in. She didn't back down. She didn't get embarrassed by it. She really just was proud in the best way of whose she was and who she followed. So those are kind of two personal ones that I know, um, and have just meant an incredible deal to me, and that I try and emulate every single day. And of course, fall short, but I strive to be like them every day.
So when you say you strive to be like them or to emulate them, what in your attitude or your behavior uh, that
Mm.
you currently live out exemplifies what it is that how they influenced you?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of had taken time to create an outline and some notes for in preparation for this. And at the very top, what I hope, what I strive for, at the very top are the three words: love, hope, and light.
Hmm.
And I say the words, I strive for those every day because I fall short every day.
Mhm.
I'm far from perfect, and I know I have blind spots. But if I can start my day with the intention of having those lead my day, and if I can end my day reflecting on where I succeeded and where I fell short, then I count that a success. And both Nancy and Peggy exemplified those three words in deed, in word, in thought. They exemplified love, hope, and light.
Love, hope, and light. What does hope mean to you?
Oh gosh. I've recently come across this interesting podcast. It's actually a YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and it's taken me down this path of hardship for many individuals that live in Skid Row in LA.
Mhm.
And the work we do, Jim, the work you do outside of where you've supported with Phase Alliance, which is where I'm at professionally. I've also worked in poverty globally in my career. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of heaviness, a lot of sadness, a lot of heartache. And this YouTube channel that I came across has individuals who are living on Skid Row, and this podcast host or this YouTube host brings them into a studio, and they are homeless. Skid Row, as you know, is known as tens of thousands, I don't know if it's tens of thousands, 10,000, 15,000 homeless people live on Skid Row. And it's opened this piece of my mind and my heart that I just weep when I watch them tell their story and share their story. And I weep not because I feel bad for them. I weep because I feel like they don't have hope. And
Mhm.
without hope, I don't know how. I certainly couldn't go on every day without hope. Knowing that the sun's going to rise tomorrow and that I have a new day. I can have had the worst day in my life or the worst day of my month or my week, and I know that tomorrow's a new day, and that I'm going to get another chance, and that I can find what I'm looking for in a positive way. And someone who has lost all hope, and when they don't have that light in their eyes, I just have to hope and pray that somebody will find them that can help them gain just that little bit. It's just that little mustard seed. It's that little, it just needs to start with a spark. A fire just needs to start with a spark. So, hope is a big word. But I think for me, it's that. It's just knowing that I get another chance. Um,
Yeah,
and so, yeah.
that's a good description. I often define hope as that experience which pulls you into the future. And you have a reason to get up in the morning. You have a reason to begin that day of work, a reason to move forward. And hope is sort of that. I'm a sailor, as you know, Jen, and sometimes if you run aground, the way you come off that spot is to throw your anchor out front and then to winch it in, and it pulls the boat forward.
Mm,
And there's an anchor in front of you that pulls you forward. And I often look at hope in that way. And what you've just described is not only what people are missing if they don't have hope,
mhm.
um, but the importance of surviving and of living abundantly requires hope. I love
Yeah.
that. I was expecting love, hope, and charity, or love, hope, and faith.
Mm, mm.
Tell me about what you mean by light. when you
Okay,
talk
so
about
light to me kind of equals faith.
it?
It's
Okay.
they're synonyms to one another.
Hmm.
And I just use light because I really, the last, I don't know, 8 years, I've studied light, the many aspects of light, the actual physical light that comes from the sun,
Hmm.
light that we emulate or carry within each other. I believe every individual on this earth was born with the light of Jesus Christ. Uh,
Hmm.
and so when I speak of light, I speak of faith and I
Hmm.
speak of Jesus Christ. I am so grateful that we all have the agency to decide what religion we want to follow, if we want to follow Christ or if we don't want to follow Christ. It's a beautiful thing about being a human being is there are some people who are forced one way or the other, but I'm grateful that a lot of us, the majority of us, have the option to choose. And I choose Jesus Christ, and I choose light, and I choose faith.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of
Good.
what light
That's a good
means.
definition.
Yeah,
So tell me about your career path, and I kind of want to connect the dots between the legacy you've inherited and identified, the values have influenced you, about the choices of your career and your vocation, and how you've lived out your life in service in so many different ways. Give us a little bit of a picture of that journey.
yeah. Gosh, so I've been in the nonprofit sector for about 14 years now, maybe 15, somewhere right in there. Um, and I have spent some time on and off in the for-profit space as well, and I keep getting pulled back. I've even told myself, like, I'm done with the nonprofit space just for myself. I think the data, I don't know, 5 years ago was that there's about a 7 year span of someone working in the nonprofit space before they just completely burn out and have to transition elsewhere. And so I'm doubling that here, going on 14, 15 years. And I just feel I feel like I have a very charmed, blessed life. That does not mean I don't have heartache. That does not mean I have not endured hard things by any measure. I certainly have. But relatively speaking, as I look around globally, and what I love about this work is I get to see my little bubble gets popped every once in a while. I live
Mhm.
in a quaint little canyon in Utah, and if I wanted to, I could just keep my bubble right here. But I really like my mind and my heart to be blown wide open when I can dive into stories like this YouTube channel on those living on Skid Row, when I get to dive into the stories and visit the countries where people don't have running water. They don't even have clean water, let alone running clean water. They don't have food to eat. They don't have their freedoms. And so I feel very blessed to be planted where I'm planted. For whatever reason, I don't know. And I feel a sense of duty, an obligation, a calling to give back. And as many times, honestly, transparently, as I've wanted to walk away from the space, this sector, because it is grueling, it is a battle. I just can't. I just can't. I keep getting called back, and so I really think I try to lead with a servant heart. I try to lead in a humble way. Humility is incredibly important, I think, to the human race. It's certainly incredibly important to me. And I have to check myself because it's easy for a natural man to have pride. And I certainly do, and I certainly can. Um, but I think it really trickles down to humility and seeing that I have things that I need to give because I have been given so much.
So tell us some of the organizations that you've worked with. I mean, you were at Choice Humanitarian for a while,
Correct.
and you're
Yes.
at Phase Alliance. Uh,
Correct.
Choice is an international development group. Why those spaces? Why? I mean, you mentioned earlier that addressing poverty or eliminating poverty is an important part of your life or your
Mhm.
mission. Say a little bit more about the kind of work you've done.
Okay, so at Choice, it was about, I mean, our mission was to eliminate extreme poverty.
Yeah.
There, we all know the data and the statistics behind poverty globally. It's impossible to comprehend.
Mhm.
But when you go and you see it, and I had the honor and the privilege to work with our country directors in the 8 countries where we worked, very closely with them, I was blown away by the sacrifices that those country directors made. And they were in country directors. They lived in the communities where they worked, from the communities where they worked. And they knew what the people needed, and they focused on that. Their motives were clean and pure. And when I go and I visit the people in the countries, I've continually been blown away as I've traveled to other developing countries and seen the hope. I've also seen places where I call them hell on earth because there is no hope, and I won't name those. But when I can go into a small community hours and hours away from civilization, where they don't have running water and they don't have food, um, I am blown away by that they want the same things that I want. As a mother, as a wife, as a community member, they want the same things I want.
Mhm.
And so I just, again, want to do what I can to help where I can, to lift where I can. As far as phase goes and combating sexual exploitation, um, there's not much more horrific things that happen in this life than somebody being sexually exploited, whether it be rape, whether it be child sexual abuse, whether it be a teenager taking their life because they were involved in sextortion. Um, I've heard too many stories. I've seen too many. I've met too many survivors. And that's just an area where I have chosen to bring some light and some hope.
Mhm. Well, while you're, by the way, we're talking with Jen Dyer, who is the Chief Operating Officer with Phase Alliance, has had a very interesting career in the nonprofit world, working with organizations dealing with extreme poverty, sexual exploitation. We're really glad to have you here. Jen, let me ask you this. I've known you principally in the context of being a fundraiser and raising resources. That's not an easy task, uh, not only because of you're constantly making an ask, you're meeting people, and you're trying to generate resources to support the good work that you're doing, which I would always maintain everybody should be involved in some way.
Yeah.
Because there are issues and causes that are worthy of support and need support. Um, what makes it uh, some people hate fundraising.
Yep.
Um, do you hate it? Do you love it? Do you are you feel called to it? What takes you to that place in your career where I'm prepared to do this? Because I've seen you and I know you. You go into meetings and you get to the point, of how somebody can support this organization or this mission. What gives you that confidence?
Yeah, great question, Jim. And I've thought about this a lot because you're right. Most people would say no, thank you to fundraising. And to be honest, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
It is an absolute necessity for an organization to survive.
Mhm.
I believe we're all given individual gifts, and I believe one of my gifts is building relationships. And again, I have not been perfect in that, but I strive to build relationships based on trust, based on transparency. And when I have a product that I love and that touches my heart, and I'm selling that product, which is what I've been doing for 14 years in the nonprofit space, that might be a harsh way to look at it, but I'm basically a salesman. And I have no problem sharing about what it is I'm selling because I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I know that it will bring light and hope and love to people's lives if they'll join me. It's totally their choice. I try not to be an annoying fundraiser, but I'm with you, Jim. I think everybody should have something they care about that they devote time if they don't have resources, financial resources, and financial resources if they do have financial resources. And if you don't know where to give, call me. I will help. It doesn't have to be my organization. I just want people to catch the spirit of what it feels like, what it looks like, the true impact, the systemic change that an individual can have on their community, on their world by getting involved in the nonprofit space.
Mhm. You know, I've been reading recently, it's a history of the faith influence on Abraham Lincoln.
Mm,
And I came across this quote, we have no right to ask God to do our duty.
mm,
And it's the tension between faith and works. It's one thing to have faith and not to do works. It's another thing to do works that has no faith.
mhm.
But it's that understanding that I just give me your thoughts on that quote. We have no right to ask God to do our duty in
Yeah.
terms of what it is we're supposed to be doing in this world.
Yeah, I want to like put that above my door. So anytime someone leaves or enters or leaves my home, they see that. Wow, I'm gonna have to write that one down and ponder on that one. I think initially, first thoughts are kind of what I was just saying along the lines where God has blessed me,
Mhm.
and I know that with those blessings comes responsibility, comes duty, comes accountability. And I know that I'm going to be held responsible. I hold myself responsible, but I know in the end, God will hold me responsible for that. And I do not, I want to be the 110 percenter. I don't want to be the one skidding in, like just barely skidding in to, to the pearly gates or however you want to say it. I want to be the one where God's like, you crushed it. Like, Jen, you crushed it. Way to go. Like, totally you fell short. Totally you messed
I
up.
love that.
But like, you crushed it, Jen. Like, that's what I want when I get to meet my maker. I hope that's what I hear, that you weren't perfect, but you crushed it. You did your best. And I know you, I often think, God, I hope you know the intents of my heart because I fall short so often. And I know he does, but like sometimes you wonder, like, please know that that's not my intent. I messed up and I'm sorry, but my intent was to do my duty.
My father, who was not necessarily a strong person of faith, but a major influence in my life, used to tell me, you're going to have three surprises, son. You're going to be surprised you made it to heaven. You're going to see people there you thought would never make it, and you won't see people there you thought for sure would
I
make it.
love that. Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. The people that have influenced you and shaped you, and the relationships that you had with them and the key learnings you've taken from them and the legacy essentially that you've inherited. Uh, how has that influenced what you actually do in fundraising or in
Mhm.
working in the nonprofit world? I mean, empathy, care, compassion, kindness were all words that you used.
Mhm.
How does that speak to you?
I
Those,
would hope, and I'm going to throw humility in there. I
uh-huh.
would hope, by your fruits you shall know them. By
Hmm.
their fruits you shall know them.
Hmm.
I would hope that as I'm fundraising and I'm sitting across the table or sitting Zoom to Zoom with a potential donor or a current donor, and this how I have had these types of meetings, but I would hope that when I visit with someone about the work that I'm engaged in, that they trust those things in me, that they trust that I'm bringing them something that is true, that is valuable, that is creating real impact, that isn't full of a lot of waste. And so, as a my character, my integrity is incredibly important to me. I left an organization because I couldn't stand by my integrity and stay with the organization and sell that product. And so I mean, it's kind of who I am. It's like in my DNA. I take that with me. And maybe some would consider it too transparent, too oversharing, too direct, too, but that's who I am. And if you want me to fundraise for you, that's what you're getting.
So, Jen, what's the legacy you want to leave? I mean, you have children, you have influence, you're interacting with a lot of people. When they
Mm.
see Jen Dyer, what is the legacy you want to leave?
Oh, that's a big question, Jim. And there's a lot I could say around that, but I'm going to start with a quote that a dear friend of mine shared with me years and years ago. And it's one that her mother shared with her. And it's love is the answer. Now, what is your question?
Hmm.
And maybe that will be on my tombstone. Maybe that's going to be on my tombstone because I, more than anything, I strive to live my life in love.
Mhm.
And to me, like hope, humility, faith, all that falls under that. But if I had to encapsulate my legacy, my life, I would hope people would look at it and think of the word love.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good answer. Good answer. So, a question a little bit out of left field, but it
Okay.
gets to another follow-up. Uh, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Leap Year. Uh,
Nope.
no, it's a romantic comedy that takes place in Ireland with Matthew Good and Amy Adams.
Okay.
And, he is challenging her in terms of what is important in her life. And he
Mm,
asks the question, if your house were to catch on fire
mm,
and you could take one thing out of the house, not counting people or dogs or pets or anything like that, but one thing that meant something to you. Uh, in my case, I have a box, a medical kit from the Second World War that my father
mm,
gave to me. And inside that box are my admissions to Harvard, my admissions, and my first Bible, New Testament. I have things that are just little. I have a string of hair from my first girlfriend. Yes, I have those little things in that box that just are prompts to who I was and what I've
mm.
become. What's one thing you would take from your house?
That's very wise, Jim, to put multiple items in a box because then you get more than one thing.
That's right.
That's very wise. Um, Without having had much thought around this, I think I would say my computer because it's where all my photos and videos are
Yeah.
from my children's lives, 27 years of content. Um, that it includes my extended family and friends and all the adventures we've been on. I think it would be that so that I could it's important for me to reflect back on that, to remember what my life has been. Speaking of legacy, what I've created over my life, what those who have influenced me have helped me create over my life. So I think I would say that my computer with all my photos and videos. I don't have a box. I'm going to have to really think about that one.
Yeah, that's right. We have been talking with Jen Dyer, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Phase Alliance, dealing with eliminating human trafficking and child sexual exploitation. Um, has really made a tremendous contribution in the nonprofit world globally and here locally in Utah. And I've had the privilege of working with her. Jen, thanks for being with us today on the Legacy Project. You have inherited a great legacy and you are forging a new legacy, a great legacy. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure.
To find out more information about this conversation and other Legacy podcast episodes, go to servantforge.org. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app and consider leaving us a review. The podcast was produced by Matt Erickson, music by David Hyde. Please look for a new episode on our podcast coming out soon. Remember, you have inherited a great legacy. You have an opportunity to create a great legacy. Engage your past to build your future.